Hi, welcome to Ask the Manager. Today we have Maribeth Lynch with us, and what I've learned in researching about Maribeth is that she's all over town. She's everywhere. Maribeth is involved with the Shrewsbury Center Business Association,
Shrewsbury Town Center Association,
Shrewsbury Town Center Association, the Yuletide Market, how's that for a tongue twister, and the Beal Reuse Committee, the Library Renovation Project. You're a realtor owner in town of Thrive Realty. You have 3 children and a dog. And a dog. See, I did my research. And you've been involved with Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. And what am I forgetting? And the schools, of course.
Schools, Zoning Board.
Zoning Board of Appeals alternate, and one of the stars of Ladies' Night.
There we go.
Most important.
My most famous role.
Yes. So with that, why don't we get started, and I'll let you ask the first question.
Oh, wonderful. So, Kevin, being in the residential real estate sector, that's kind of what makes me tick. If you were a realtor and you had to sell the top things about Shrewsbury, in no particular order, what would they be?
Well, I agree with most people that one of the biggest assets that we have in our community is the schools. There's no doubt that they rank and perform and provide just quality education that leads to lifelong education. So that's where I would start. There's no doubt about that. I think being swayed by my current position, I would also add the comprehensive level of services that we have within the municipal government. And I would stray immediately away from conventional municipal government and talk about Selco. We had a presentation the other night at the Board of Selectmen meeting by Michael Hale, and he showed, the electricity bill for average Shrewsbury home, $90 a month versus, a competitor, that's in with, the bigger other utilities, it's like $200 a month. So, and then you have the other benefits of Selco, but, that comes to value. So I think there's a lot of value in our community. We really do have a very low per capita tax, although it feels like every time we need a little bit more money, everyone, is broke, and it's always a challenge to change and increase any costs. But I think there's a lot of value from the municipal side and what residents actually pay in taxes and fees. If you combine that all together and look at the full suite of what it is that we provide residents, including with Selco. And I really see that, where I go next is leading to the continued competitive edge and vibrant community that exists now and will continue to exist in the future. I do look forward to the expansion of, technology and fiber throughout the community that Selco is working on, because I think that will enable improved municipal operations, but also lead to one of the things I think is going to be very important, and I'd be interested to hear what you think about this, a desirability factor, or maybe even more than just desirable, people needing very high-speed internet, given the changing work-life balance and remote settings that people are finding themselves working in. I think that trend is going to continue over the years, and I think we're going to be very well positioned to have the right public infrastructure in place to support people that want to work from home and need a lot of capacity when they do that. So I think it's very complementary, and it's the vibrancy that we're looking to continue. It's always been here, and move it into the next generation or next phase. So if I can, do you see people starting to think about technology or internet as they make decisions, especially those folks who may work from home?
That's very interesting, because there's a new emerging trend. We always, as the years go on, we say, what are people looking for in housing? What specific things? One of the more interesting emerging trends are dueling offices. So a his and her office space within a home, which to me tells the whole story. We have moms and dads that are going to be home, and they need the capacity to be able to work from home. Access, high internet speeds would be really important. And then on top of that would be the trend towards companies having a base of employment, and then having their valued employees need to travel to different sectors. So having a municipal, a regional airport close by, and the ability to get on and off highways, certainly. But to your point, the emerging trend is definitely working from home and needing that high-speed internet capacity and cell service that is no fail, which we could get a little better on. But that's not us. That's more cell tower issues.
One thing that always concerns me with people in town, so I'm sure it must be a concern to people outside of town, is people in town believe we have bad water. And how would you answer that?
Well, we have had water quality issues in the past, but we're addressing them in full force right now. With the water treatment plant that came on board in the end of 2018, that's been operating for over a year, and our more aggressive stance to remove discolored aspects of our water. We've been performing our unidirectional flushing plan, and one of the biggest things that I like about that is that no one's complaining. So we're doing that work in the background. We're providing notices to residents in the neighborhoods that we have been working, not every day, but sporadically, even throughout the winter. And when we used to flush, up until this new approach, we used to get complaints because people were experiencing discolored water while we were flushing, but we're not getting literally any of that now, which means we're not mixing the system up and allowing the sediment, the manganese to move throughout the system. We're getting it out. So I'm very happy that that is a strong indicator that we're actually being much more effective with this approach than we ever have in the past. So I would also say that it's in every community, there's something that has a lot of public attention, and in Shrewsbury, it's water, and rightfully so. But, sometimes that, you have to figure out a way to break that cycle because it starts to become not as true as it was. And I think that's where we're moving into. So we need to make sure we're telling people how much better that it's getting and what we are doing to improve it.
But as I talk about water with different people, I think that there's issues with water everywhere.
There is.
And some of what we talk about pertaining to water, for example, the PFAS, is in water all over the country, all over the world, not just in Shrewsbury. And it's because now it's measurable that we, address it because we know it's there. But so people that think that they can't drink from our faucets and have to have bottled water, and this is in areas where they didn't have a color problem or discoloration. Everybody has to have this bottled water, and it really bothers me because I find that the bottle itself is more dangerous than what they believe to be in our water. So I appreciate and am glad that we address every issue that comes along related to water, and that we do everything we can to improve our water. But I don't believe that we have bad water compared to other areas. And it concerns me that perhaps in other towns they don't even test for the things that we test for.
There's many surrounding communities that haven't had to and have chosen not to. You can always test for it, but we decided to hit it head on, see what we have, and start to work to get PFAS out of it. And it is a widespread problem. The state has opened up millions of dollars in no interest loans to municipalities to remove PFAS from the water. So that means at the state level, not only they're taking action, but they know it's widespread. Because if it was an isolated incident, they would, the state administration would work directly with that community and not cast a wide net, but that's not the approach they're taking. So it's something that we will pursue in that low interest loan program to see if that's the best approach for us to take.
That's great.
Go ahead.
My turn?
Yeah.
So of course I was going to say we love development. I don't know that that's always the popular. I love to see things that have been sitting kind of languishing made better. So I'm interested to hear of all the things that that are going on in town, what's the most exciting project that's out there and why? And what do you see as, the next 5 years in terms of that project?
Well, I honestly think the most exciting project for me is the work that's starting on the town center. I think the biggest project is the Edgemere Drive-In redevelopment. So the town center project is a community building project, I think is what it really is. And it has the opportunity to transform and provide a sense of place that in some ways in this community may be one of the things that's lacking, right? Like a place that people can come and, walk to and enjoy and linger and coalesce around, residents. That's what we're hearing, as you know, at these sessions. So, we're kind of moving into this technical aspect of that and away from the fun part in the community and rewriting the zoning for the town meeting to kind of make that happen. But so it will then shift back from us to the private sector and the community to say, okay, we've defined the box that the residents, want you to work in. Now, please come work. So there's a lot of work to do. But I really think, for me, that's the most exciting because, unlike an individual parcel of land, people feel ownership in the town center and they really want it to be theirs and they want to be a part of what it looks like. So that is really fun and exciting to see, a really just plain old positive way to interact and engage with the community. But then if you look at, the biggest project that's going to be happening in the coming years will be the Edgemere Drive-In redevelopment, and they're now the whole way through all their local permitting as far as planning board and site plan approvals and things like that. And they're working with the state on environmental aspects of getting their approvals and transportation aspects of their approvals. But they'll be starting construction hopefully within the next 6 months or so. So that'll be very transformative in and of itself and provide another, niche community like the Lakeway Commons District. That will see much more real dollar investment over the coming years than maybe you'll see in the town center. I mean, I could hope that we could see $45 million investment in the town center, but that will continue to transform the community. And one of the things that I like most about that project is we're getting some early buy into the Route 20 master plan that Mass DOT has been working on, really under Rep. Kane's leadership and demands, to be quite honest with you. It's multifaceted, public infrastructure, roadway development, multimodal path that, is kind of, new to any transportation that will connect, abilities for pedestrians and bikes and things to really have a safe place along that major corridor, which will open it up for a number of different uses and not just the more intensive, really truck-based transportation distribution that you see along that corridor of the community. There's actually a fence that's been put up and mobilization underway for the pump station that will aid in the sewer improvements that are being made in Route 20. So that will be completed by this June, and we'll actually start the new sewer mains in Route 20 to connect into the City of Worcester system and begin that partnership with them this summer. So there's going to be a lot of construction in the Route 20 corridor this summer, both within the public way and outside of it. So, I mean, those are the two biggest things that are in the pipeline. We continue to see a lot of, interest in other, smaller development and folks that are still looking to utilize every piece of land that they can, which is good. I mean, we don't want that to end in some ways. That brings vibrancy. So,
And money to the town.
it does. Yep.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I thought you'd say more about the municipal projects. For example, the police station and town hall complex.
Yeah, certainly we are excited about those as well. We have an architect on board and we're doing some preliminary programming, what I would think are probably some of the most boring phases of the projects where we're just looking at
The beginning.
Yeah, what do departments need? What does the police department need? Real basic calculations like if our population is X, how many jail cells do we have to put in there for holding, and how many of those have to be juvenile, how many of them have to be women, or how many of them are men, because there's all these formulas that
How
go
many
into
do we have
place.
now?
I think we have 6 holding
Oh,
cells.
we do have 6?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't think we had that many.
You've never been back there, Donna?
I have, but it's been years. Only on tour.
So there's a lot of preliminary planning going into that. We're just really trying to define what is our base square footage that we're going to need. Can the existing station work, which is probably a no, and what will we need to support those operations in the future. 1972 is the date that's on the outside of the existing building, and I think the population was around 18,000 then, and I don't know how many officers we have, but we're almost up to 50 now, sworn officers. So,
And just so you know, that municipal buildings, every corner of the property is used. We used to do aerobics upstairs in the police station.
oh, really?
Yeah, and it was basically like an attic, and we used to dance up there. And can you imagine the people trying to work downstairs?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where aerobics were held.
Yeah, I mean, town hall space is really cramped. It was expanded in 1996, 1997, but it is not just cramped because we have a ton more employees, because we really don't. But storage needs continue to grow. Documents, records is vital to what we do for the not only history but documenting everything that happens in town. So we need more storage space, and meeting space is one of the biggest drivers for this project. Having the school department and Selco in the same building is great. We all utilize the common conference areas for whatever it is that we need, and given that work is more collaborative and there's more leadership teams and more group work environments, our footprint and the way we have the building laid out just doesn't work as efficiently as it could. And one of the things that I really hope to change is we have a couple office spaces that are in the main corridor that don't have any natural light. So we have people that are working 40 hours a week in that building with no windows, kind of stale air, more stale air than should be. So I'd really like to find a way to use the center aspects of our buildings for the conference spaces, and if we can. So it's something that we'll kind of key in on and see if it's an opportunity. I hate knowing people that literally are within 4 closed-in walls.
And it's all relative if you think about it, because when I ride by Town Hall, I find myself very often looking and thinking, what a beautiful building.
Yeah.
And it truly is.
Yeah.
And then you go to other towns and you can't even figure out if you've passed their town hall.
Right.
Do they, it's a building, it looks like a deserted house, and it's their town hall. And if you're in Hawaii, those buildings look like Quonset huts. I mean, it's just amazing in different parts of the country how people value their town hall and their municipal buildings. And when I pass our town hall, more often than not, I'm admiring it. And if it's not, the way the front of the town hall is left wide open, and that was purposely done.
With no trees.
With no trees, and that was our town
Purposely
manager
done.
at the time, Mr. Carney, loved it that way. No matter how we tried to convince him to put some trees there, he didn't want to. Maybe he was right, I don't know. But it's just such a beautiful building. But I don't know of another town that has a building as beautiful as ours.
It's definitely stood the test of time. Although Wellesley has a beautiful municipal building that's like an old castle, or it's old beautiful. But I think to your point, it really is remarkable that as a town, that's it draws you in. You get past the town commons, which I think is quintessentially beautiful, and we drive through some things that we're going to change, and then you get to the town hall, and there really is a sense of like this is a great town, and I really think that it anchors us. So I've always been very proud of that, and I agree. I think it's a significant building in town, and it'll be good to see what changes are made.
We had an event there, a couple meetings there yesterday with some leadership from the Massachusetts Municipal Managers Association. So, other town managers from across the state were in our building yesterday, and, they more than most appreciate the quality and the level of attentiveness, the cleanliness and everything that we have, because that's the other part. Our buildings are so well maintained.
Yes.
Our public buildings division and public facilities in general for our parks do a wonderful job of really keeping, you want to talk about certain aspects of the Shrewsbury way, that building maintenance and caring for and being very diligent of that is a keen part of that, or a major part of that.
And that's our expectation.
Sure.
I mean, that's
it.
We fought that tooth and nail many years ago to be sure that it was cleaned the way it should be, that we had the right staffing to make that happen. And so, but as we sit here and pat ourselves on the back because our town's so wonderful, there's always things we can do to be better, to improve the water, to improve the buildings, to provide more space, playgrounds.
Yep, I think we always have to look back and recognize that just like you're saying, that the reason it is so nice is because someone made a decision to take the next step and do it properly.
That's right.
So we can't get complacent, not that we can't be irresponsible, but we can't get complacent and think that just because the town hall was built in 1966, that's all we're ever going to need, or the police station in 72, or this school, or that, I don't know, don't kick me, but Beale may not be the last school that we ever built, in this town, right?
True.
So
It's likely not the last
Yeah,
school.
I mean, it's something that, if we're properly managing and investing in ourselves, which are what all these capital projects are, we'll be proud of that in the future, and I certainly don't want anyone to be disappointed with not doing something. I always try to think of whenever I'm making decisions, although my family doesn't live here, maybe my kids will want to one day, and what would they say?
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
30 years from now, boy, my dad just wouldn't have sat back. You know what I mean?
He didn't do a job that he should have done.
So you got to take that into context, because we're all so proud of the former managers and all the other former department heads that we have, because they did a good job. So that's what we can't lose sight of that. Yeah. And it wasn't because they didn't do anything, it's because they did a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a lot of thought put into it.
Well, they always say to make things better than when you found them,
Right.
and that's always been my goal. I'm a short-lived, only been here 30 years, so I know for
Only
townies,
30.
I know. I finally feel like I got one
30.
stripe, maybe. But it's changing town. It's changed a lot in 30 years, and I feel like it's our job to continue to move that forward. So I have a fun question.
Okay.
Well, so you've been our town manager for how long?
Over 2.5 years.
2.5,
Yep.
yeah. So is there anything about your job or about the people here that has come as a surprise? So any observations that when you got your job, you thought it was going to be one way, and you're finding that it's a completely different way?
Well, I mean, I really think one of the things that is still surprising to me is the breadth of work that we do take on as a town. And, it is a one-stop shop from the town hall. So, having so many services that we provide in-house with our own staff, and that we value because, we know that that's the best way to do it, to not rely upon a third party to run our water system, or not rely upon, a quasi entity to provide some other services in the community, is really important. And in those instances where we work with third parties, they're really part of the fabric of the town. So Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, that service level that is provided this community is completely new to me. There's no other community that I've ever worked in that had such a focus and had an entity like that. So again, they feel like part of the town, even though they may be, a third party service provider. But really that breadth of the fabric that exists, that we provide with town staff throughout the community is really important. And as a local government professional manager, I see that as being a reason that we've been so successful. In other communities across the nation and the world who have taken that leadership position and figured out a way to do that, get the buy-in of the community, not let third party people that don't have to be responsive provide services, is really important. If you go in a lot of other parts of the country, water districts are private. So while it may be somewhat annoying, I didn't say that, for residents to complain because they don't think we're doing things fast enough, and I know that can be the perception, it's at least better that you can come and talk to us, and we're held responsible for that. And if we weren't doing our jobs, then things would change. But if you go somewhere else where, these large corporations run their water district, where do you even start? Do you call the 1-800 number? Do you write a letter to the corporate office in Chicago? You can come to us and talk to us about that. So that's across all departments that we run. This is the most comprehensive suite of services in any community that I've ever worked in. And I think I knew that coming in, but really seeing the dedication of the people that work in those positions and just how broad it is, whether it's the Donahue Rowing Center or other things like that, is really profound and fun to be a part of, to be quite honest with you. So,
I love it. I agree. Couldn't agree.
yeah.
It's a great town to be able to there's just so many things about it that are unique.
Yep.
Even our middle school structure, for example.
It is, yep.
I love that. And that was kind of, not an accident, but there was just a reuse of buildings that really kept the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. That's really brilliant, I think, from an educational perspective. So those are the little things that you learn about when you spend some time here.
Yeah. I mean, we are working diligently to continue to modernize how we operate and manage within the town hall. So that's something that I don't think a lot of people see. I try to talk about it when I'm here in other venues, but really, building leadership, being more transparent with our goals and the things that we are working on, trying to get resident feedback, because, I like to characterize my leadership style as servant leadership, and that's, it really means that if the community decides that they want to do something, it's my job to carry it out. It's not my job to say, under most circumstances, no. If there's resource implications, it's to highlight it. If we never want a snowflake to hit a roadway surface, there's probably some math equation that we could figure out what that cost, or if we're okay with a foot of snow on the roads.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's all what the community wants. If we want to focus on the town center, well, then it's our job to find a way to focus on the town center and do what the community wants. And I think that there's room for improvement from the town manager's office on how we engage with the community and be more willing to listen and understand what it is that residents want and try to find a way to do that. And it's just highlighting the cost implications of those things, but not being, well, we probably can't afford that. It's no, it would cost this. Do you want to do
Right.
that? That's more the model that I want to continue to work from my office, for the community.
Speaking of money, it's February, so
Oh,
you'll be winding up with the Finance Committee spending a lot of time going forward now. What do you see, I know you've talked about it in other meetings, but what do you see as the positives and concerns
I
going
thought at
forward?
first you were going to remind me to get my wife a Valentine's Day present.
Oh, that's true.
Don't forget.
Fortunately, we have a lot of shops in the area, so, and, yeah.
So
Call Amazon.
Yeah, we are in the middle of the budget process. Some of the positives are equate to some of the struggles. So I'll start with the fire department. We do have the 4 new firefighters that are on board now from the SAFER grant. So there's a lot of not hidden cost implications, but just ancillary cost implications that even I wasn't really thinking about a year ago with this. I was thinking about this one, but the budget does have the creation of a new rank for lieutenant to make sure we have proper management structure at our outlying station, not just all firefighters, but a chain of command. That's what's necessary, especially whenever you're rolling up to a chaotic critical event. We need clear command and control whenever we arrive on those scenes. So the creation of lieutenant positions, not very costly, but it's within the budget and a new cost this year. Then maintaining equipment and staffing related there too. We're also making some positive inroads with dedicating some extra resources in for elder services outreach within the community or within the Council on Aging. So that's very important. It's been an overall kind of a struggle as a budget process. Folks may have heard us talk a lot about, there's only about $1.3 million, not even $1.4 million going to the school district for new funding. I like to say, put it in my bank account, that's a lot of money. Spread it over a $70 million school operation doesn't get you very far. It kind of keeps you treading water at best, and maybe not treading water so efficiently, starting to slide under a little bit. So we had, the overall budget is going to go up by about $5 million in new expenditures, but more than half of those expenditures are dedicated to restricted type activities like debt service or within the utilities. So it's not like we can rapidly expand the general services that we provide on the municipal side or the school side. So there's really no growth or almost stagnation on a lot of the other aspects of that don't have their own dedicated funding sources. The budget will be like $148.5 million that we're going to present. The tax levy represents about 85 million of that. So a little bit more than half. And when that only grows by 2.5%, and some of our other revenue categories don't grow at all, it's challenging. It's really hard to distribute that money and make a real impact to continue to build upon the improvements. We can certainly continue on the municipal side to provide all the services that we're providing today. So that's not a challenge that I'm happy we don't have to face, but it kind of will just be more of the same into the future. Some people are okay with that. Some people would like to see differences and or different things happening, and I think that's where the community engagement and prioritization, happens.
Is there,
year out.
are there any creative ideas to create revenue, more revenue?
Well, so I think we're being, from a revenue standpoint, we're being conservative still. I'm not introducing any estimates for marijuana revenue, for instance. We don't have any shops open. I don't feel comfortable saying we're going to get money
definitely.
for shops that aren't even open yet. But that could be a reality and an opportunity within, the next, 20 months until we get to the end of the next fiscal year. We're very limited in our opportunities to raise new revenue sources, unlike other municipalities across the country. So we can't be too creative or we'll get in trouble. But something that has been being discussed is, are we maintaining our sewer infrastructure properly, and do we need to look at the sewer rates? So preliminary conversation with the sewer commission on that. We did raise rates for the pay-as-you-throw program, which will enable that to continue. Curbside pickup of recycling and trash through bag fees, and not impinge upon the general tax levy as much in the future. So we're making all the right steps, but as the operation grows, and really in this strong economic situation, 2.5%, 3% new revenue just means we're going to do the same thing year over year. It doesn't provide for a lot of new flashy, not even flashy, but important initiatives that we should consider taking on.
Additional restaurants have helped us.
They have.
We still have property like whatever the Allen property's called nowadays. I'll always call it the Allen property. Once I give it a name, it's stuck. So that land could create opportunities for us. There's other town property where we could have opportunities to, and if you drive down Route 9, there are many for lease signs from Shrewsbury to Boston, for lease, for lease. And the closer you get to 495 or the Mass Pike, those are more valuable pieces of property, and there are an awful lot of properties. So we may be waiting a while still for anything to come to Shrewsbury, but maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe there's business that would feed off the medical center that would benefit from being closer to here. So I hope that we keep pushing ahead to find that opportunity, because that opportunity will come. And it never hurts to put more restaurants in, because clearly people don't cook. So more restaurants mean more revenue for the town.
Yeah, I mean, we will see revenue growth in future years from some of the projects that we talked about right at the outset, like the Edgemere Drive-In redevelopment. That will generate, a rather notable amount of new tax revenue. So that's something that we're going to plan for. We don't anticipate any of that in the next fiscal year, which is fiscal year 21. But fiscal year 22 and beyond, that's something that we'll plan for. And since it's so similar to the Lakeway Commons redevelopment, we'll be able to have a good model to follow and see what those impacts are. And I don't want to lose sight of that revenue. I really want to work with the Board of Selectmen to earmark what new things that we can do, if there's opportunities to do that, because otherwise it kind of gets lost in the mix.
But you have expenses coming forward as the 4 new firefighters come off the grant. Those will be 100% paid by the town.
Yep, within 3 years.
When the new Beale school opens, that will have added expenses. So the good news is we anticipate that there'll be more revenue coming in that hopefully will offset some of that. but you will also have money from OPEB?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah, so we are in a very good position with the growth in stock market and equities over the past year, that our pension system, along with our diligent funding of it, is really close to being fully funded. So that will be an opportunity that I see in fiscal year 2022 to move some money that's currently dedicated to that into other areas. That will coincide with the opening of a new elementary school. So there'll be not only teacher costs, go from a 30,000 square foot building to a 142,000 square foot building, and right sizing all our classes and things like that. There's utility costs, there's custodial costs, maintenance of that whole property to keep it up and operating and well maintained. So there are a lot, those costs I could see, and we've already estimated that there'll be over $2 million for that that we'll need. And I think with pension funding reductions and other new revenues, that we'll be able to do that without any extraordinary tax increases or anything related to that on the operational side. So
Now, you had property auctions,
we did.
and you've identified open space or town property across. There's a map now that we can see all the different town property. When I see that coupled with the property that was auctioned, I hope that we're not going to turn around and sell town property just to make the money for today and not keep that land for what we need it for in the future. Is there discussion about that?
So there hasn't been a lot of discussion about next steps, but going back to my previous comments, I think that's a conversation to have, with town officials and with the community, right? Like how can we link those spaces together that were maybe part of a cluster subdivision development, that kind of stand alone, but what opportunities do we have to piece those different colors on that map together to make it a more integrated system of open space, conservation, trails, recreation? How much interest is there? And I assume that there's a lot for the community to have assets like in it. It's always been important, but is just as important today and will be in the future for an overall quality of life, especially if people aren't really leaving their homes to go to work or are working in their homes more. That means they're home sooner and hopefully can take advantage of the other good aspects of life, in the community and don't have to travel a lot. So there's a lot that's going to be on the table with how the community changes and emerges with climate change and electric cars and all those things that we'll be willing to tackle in the future.
I just have a quick comment or a compliment. So I live at the top of Main Street towards the center of town, and the new roads and the sidewalks, seeing people walk from Main Street all the way down to past Old Mill Road, that's a huge gift. And for those of us that have lived in town a long time, to see that pedestrian traffic, to me, every time I see someone walking, I say yay. And I see that as emerging as just what's ahead for our downtown. So compliments on that. That was a great project. And I would say that, social media being what it is, you can spend a lot of time hearing what people's complaints are. But I would certainly like to compliment you and everyone in town for such hard work and diligence on making our town. I think it's an amazing town, and I go out and I look at other towns, and every time I go back and say, this is where it's at, and that really, I mean that from my heart. So thank you.
No, thank you. It's wonderful. We're hearing more and more from residents about sidewalks and connectivity and non-vehicle-based transportation, and that's something that we hear loud and clear and are trying to figure out. It's expensive, and it's not a knock on the Main Street project, but we created sidewalks, and residents, rightfully said, after the first snowstorm, are you going to plow them? And we said, no.
It's like kids. You give them a little and they want a lot.
Yeah, so that's a conversation that we need to have and just say, well, if you want us to, then it costs this. What are our alternatives? We have 2 machines that does clear the sidewalks, and we clearly focus from mainly the schools outwards. You
Sure.
know, that's really important to continue to have safe walking environments. And that even challenges us. It takes, hours, total hours, both of those machines working, 8 or 10 hours each just to do the sidewalks that we do. And that's certainly not every sidewalk within the community. And then you add 4 miles in on Main Street, 2 miles on each side of the road, and, it's a big challenge. So but we've heard a lot of that. And on the Beal project side, the elementary school, we're very fortunate to be on time and under budget. And so the guaranteed maximum price for the contractor came in about between $1.5 million and $2 million less than the construction estimate. We haven't touched any contingency funds, which there's about another $3 to $5 million in contingency. So in a really good place for that project. And I think the building committee did a smart thing and said, okay, to the contractor, things seem to be going well, please price out a sidewalk for us from the school down to Hialeah, past the Shrewsbury Youth. So even with that included, we're still over $1.5 million under budget. And that's with a very, very conservative estimate. So we know that community connectivity, as we've grown, and now it's time to put the pieces together. That will be important. But so the ongoing maintenance, I think, is what some people forget, and the amount of time that it really takes to run a snow blower or other piece of equipment to maintain those sidewalks and not do damage to people's lawns. And
but we're
just
also
really maintain it.
responsible to do the sidewalks in front of our house, our own property.
There's no requirement on the homeowner, like we wouldn't fine you. It'd be wonderful if
There's
folks
revenue.
have that opportunity to do that. No, it wouldn't be wonderful to find people. I did not say that.
That is not
was
good.
Donna.
Just checking.
Donna's idea.
It would be wonderful if folks were able to do that. I know everyone can't do that, but we are very limited from the capacity that we have with the equipment and the staffing and the resources that we have to be able to do that. It's silly things. It's those pieces of equipment have 20-gallon gas tanks. They can only go so far on a single tank of gas. We've got to get back, so we're looking, okay, we need fuel boxes in some of our trucks to go out there and service. It's this constant evolution
all those things.
to try
The
to
ripple
piece
effect.
together, when we have a piece of equipment working out by the high school, things like that. So we're working on all those type of things.
Is it my turn again?
It's yours.
Oh, boy. Running out of questions.
Well, don't worry, we've got plenty.
My next question was about Beal School and just how we were doing with the construction, but you sort of addressed that.
Yeah, well, one other part, actually, tomorrow, February 14th, we'll have the topping off ceremony, which is the completion of all the structural steel already. So we're a couple weeks ahead of schedule on that.
And what's the topping off ceremony?
So it's the final piece of structural steel will be hoisted into place and secured, and the school students in the current Beal are all signing a banner that will be attached to that. There'll be a little ceremony. It's really a steelworkers ceremony because they'll also raise a flag and put a fir tree on it because there's been no significant injuries during that process, so it's really related to them. And it really marks a milestone in the completion of that project that, the shell of the steel aspects of the building are in place. Still a lot of work to do to close in the building and expand a couple of the wings that don't have that structural steel in it. It'll be a brief ceremony, probably 35 or 40 minutes, just thanking the workers for their hard work and celebrating and moving on to the next aspect.
So that's actually come fast, because if you think about it, we were focused on, is the road going to open? And that was going to be in December, and here we are in February, and you're already talking about topping off. So I know the work was being done at the same time, but we were focused on the road, and here we are with the steel up.
If anyone hasn't driven past the site, please do. And if you have the opportunity to come northbound on Lake Street and see the view of the buildings over the soccer fields towards Route 9, it is quite a building that's already there in place. There's some drone footage that we put up at least monthly on the public buildings website, so you could get an aerial view of it. But really driving past, you see the mass of what a 142,000 square foot building is like. And the contractors and the support team up there have really done a wonderful job. We are ahead of schedule even with the steel. And honestly, next year at this time, we'll be talking about how close we are to within a few months of actually having substantial completion done on that building, because it will open a year, about 18 months from now in the fall for the 2021-2022 school year. So we've got to keep moving. There's a massive concrete pour that's going to occur later next week. They'll be working, 12 or 14 hours and bringing in 2,600 cubic feet of concrete, which will literally take all day.
Does
to
weather
get into
affect that?
building.
I was just going to ask that.
It does, but so we've been very fortunate with
Yeah.
weather, which is one of the reasons that we are trending ahead of schedule. But they'll actually put in subsurface heating systems to make sure that the concrete cures at the proper rate. And these projects, best practices, we have a testing firm on site that will be taking samples of the concrete before it leaves any truck. And we'll test it. It's called a slump test. So before we even make a bad pour, we would know that. So we'd prevent the bad pour, and then once it sets, we'd have a separate structural test. So we'll make sure that even under the conditions that they're pouring in, that it's proper temperatures and it sets up well, and that we don't have any problems in the future. So the working conditions and the level of skill in these contractors working in this environment, they're used to doing that. So it's pretty routine for them, which is good. But there will be tarps that go up. There will be heaters that are brought in on site to keep the ambient temperatures where they need to be for that first 24 to 48 hours.
I was just thinking, it's supposed to be 27 degrees tomorrow, so you're up on a hill, there'll probably be a breeze. You'll be talking for less than a 30-minute spiel there,
can
because
skip the
people will
town
be
manager.
frozen.
I remember the topping off of the library. That felt like it was yesterday, and here we are.
Yeah,
Another
building.
beautiful
Another
building.
beautiful building.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Engine 1, fire engine 1
Yes.
has been refurbished. What happens next? What's the next vision for fire?
So we're actually constructing. So at the annual town meeting, a part of this year's capital plan, we have a new engine that's being built right now that will replace engine 4, which is our current oldest. That's been on the road for over 20 years. So I actually saw pictures of that about a week and a half ago, and they're really just starting the fabrication of the raw steel into the frame. All those trucks, it's not like an auto assembly plant where they're just rolling fire trucks off. It's more like an airline plant where someone orders the fire truck and then it's built. So we actually get to watch it being built through every iteration of the process. And that means that we can expect delivery of that new apparatus sometime this coming summer. Big price tag, takes a long time to build, $800,000+ vehicle, and it's currently under construction. So that'll be something to celebrate this summer once we bring it into town.
Will we be ever having online payment for town bills?
Yeah, we do have some of that right now. You can pay your tax bills. Actually had a really interesting meeting earlier this week with our vendor that we use for our building permit system. You can pay with a credit card with that as well. But one of the reasons that we haven't moved further with online payments and utilization of that storefront system, that vendor, is because we weren't able to really segment out different costs from different departments. So we actually had a conversation with our CIO and their IT people, and we figured out a way. So I think you will see over the next 12 months the ability to secure DPW permits and Board of Selectmen and Board of Health licenses through an online portal and not have to send a check in or come in. So we are trying to really catch up. We're really excited about our partnership with that company, who's part of a company called OpenGov, and they're kind of a leader in performance management and really all sorts of technologies to bring the public sector closer to how folks interact with the private sector. There's always a lag, and there always will be, but we're moving in the right direction from that standpoint.
I have to confess, when I heard that the selectmen were going to have a newsletter, I thought, oh, brother, who's going to do that? How are they going to do it? It's going to cost a lot of money. And then I went online and saw what that meant. So it's online.
Welcome to 2020.
And so I've come into the next century, and I love it.
Yeah.
I really love it
great.
because, you know, sometimes you can't sit through a whole selectmen's meeting to see what's going to happen, which is most of the time. But you can click, click, click and see everything that you want. And it's really, I love it. I think it's great. And is DPW doing the same type
They are
of
doing
thing?
the same. Yep.
That's really, really
Yeah, I mean,
good.
we heard loud and
progressive.
clear at last year's annual town meeting that people were, in some cases, they did some citizens' petitions because they were frustrated that they didn't think that we were moving ahead on some things. So the waterfront, the pesticide, you know, abandoning the use of that. And then we told them at the meeting, and they said, "Boy, you should tell us about that."
Exactly.
So we're trying.
there you
We're
go.
trying to do that.
It's great.
Yeah, so Valerie Clemmy in the Selectmen Town Manager's office and Alex Martinez are the, you know, the leaders behind Selectmen Selections, which is the Board of Selectmen's newsletter. And I've had the great fortune to see that evolve. I don't know. We
That's
did
better than
we-
minutes.
Yeah, we did that for the board.
Minutes are boring.
We've been doing that for the Board of Selectmen and staff for over a year now. And it was really started off as paper-based with some links to agendas, and Valerie's really figured out a way to evolve it into what it is, the public-facing document. So we're really happy to hear that feedback. And it is really, it's probably, if folks haven't seen it, it's on our website, and you can sign up for news flashes to be notified when it comes out. But it really will take like what was over a 3-hour meeting this past Tuesday for the Board of Selectmen. It'll break out all the major topics, and she actually does a great job in working
does.
with Mark and the folks here at SMC to provide you video clips of that, so you can see what, you know, she may say happens through the minutes, but then also review that segment of the video. Which I think is a huge asset.
Oh,
If
I
you
think
wanna-
it's great.
If you want to hear about the budget, you don't have to wait until 2 hours and 45 minutes into the meeting
It's right
to,
there.
you know, hear the conversation about that. Yeah, we look forward to, you know, building on that and finding other ways for other departments to come on board as well. So
I wish I could remember what, I believe it was a newspaper, and I want to say Money Magazine, but I know that that's wrong, but we were top ranked for safety in the state.
Yes.
Was it Money Magazine or?
so there's I don't know the source either to be honest with you, but yes, we were top ranked within the state, top five.
I mean, that's really a pretty amazing thing, and I think we should talk about that really quickly. I mean, not only do we have a great town, but it's a safe town.
It is, yeah.
And
I mean, you know, talk about investment. You have to invest in your town to continue to have that. And we've slowly, responsively added to the police force as projects like Lakeway Common have come on board. And I know some people, if you don't see that context, you can say, wow, do we really need to have 50 police officers? Do we really need to add another officer? That, you know, that cost could go somewhere else. But that's the only way that we can be that. You know, there's times, you know, if it's a Friday in the summer between, you know, 4 p.m. and 11 p.m., we have like 12 or 16 police officers out within the community, and they're not sleeping behind a building. They are very busy.
And they keep us safe.
They do.
But the numbers keep them safe also.
Absolutely.
And we
That's
have
true.
such a violent society these days that it's very important to keep them safe.
definitely.
And so the numbers
Yeah,
are still low by comparison.
Yeah, we're very proud of Chief Hester and his entire staff for the work they do. They don't want the recognition, but they certainly deserve it because, you know, they get it. They get those accolades, and it's one of those hard things to judge because it's judging what's not there. And when the crime's not there, you don't really think about it. But, you know, if we had a rash of things break out, we know they jump right on it and make sure it doesn't turn into something that it may otherwise.
One thing I've seen over 30-something years or more, the fire department, firefighters, and the police officers come to work with an an energy and enthusiasm that is really admirable. Not that other firefighters in previous years and police officers didn't like what they did, but you can feel the energy, you can feel their enthusiasm, and they're so proud of their work. And I have to tell you, I looked across the street when I was backing into my yard a couple of weeks ago, and I saw what I thought was the house on fire across the street. And all it was smoke coming out of the side of the house instead of out of the chimney because of the new inventions, of course. But I didn't know what it was, and I thought, I can't just go in the house without telling someone that house could be on fire. So I called and I said, look, I don't know what I'm looking at, but this is what I see. And the firefighters came, 2 trucks and supervisor, et cetera. And they were so nice, and they were so proud and so good at what they did, but also it making me not feel like, oh, here's the ditz across the street, so nosy that you thought the house was on fire. I never noticed it before, and it was the first, I think it was fairly new, but I really felt their energy. I really felt their pride in the work that they did, and it's the same in the police department. They want to help. They want to, take care of us and make our town as great as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think over 30 years or longer, the evolution of what it means to be a police and firefighter is significant, right? Like, we have the luxury, you almost need a master's degree to be a police officer or firefighter these days. And not that, classroom education is the only thing that matters in any position, but it's very important, on how they learn to both deal with the technical sides of their job in firefighting and police work and criminal justice and fire science, but also interacting with other people, working in groups, working with residents, coming out and being willing to speak, make presentations, do prevention. And that's an evolution. It's not a knock on, a police officer or firefighter from 20 or 30 years ago. It was a different world. And, just so blessed to have those people that want to take on these very tough jobs in a very tough society for them in some aspects.
Flaky residents who think they see fires when it's just smoke coming out of a side chimney. That's not a chimney.
But I can tell you, rightfully so, when you called, they're taking it serious. 2 trucks showed up. Well, did 2 trucks have to show up? Donna didn't know if it was on fire. Well, if it was, we were ready. And that's what they're there for.
And they had a great response time, too.
That's wonderful.
You look at response times. They responded. They, they did their job.
That's great.
So, and fortunately, it wasn't a fire. But this was another fast hour. I want to thank you, Maribeth. You're going to have to come back because you had great questions. And another month's gone by. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.